America Arena is alive and roaring. Game 7 is tied with 3.5 to go here in the fourth. Irving drives, hop step inside, posts it up, misses. Rebound taken by Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection. His third block of the game as we come up on a minute and a half remaining. Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown! And the Cavaliers by 3. It's over! It's over! Cleveland is a city of champions once again! The Cavaliers are NBA champions! And the emotions for LeBron James, who delivers on his promise to come home and bring a championship to his beloved hometown.
Cleveland! This is for you!
This game is seen by many to be the greatest Game 7 in NBA history, quite possibly the greatest game the NBA has ever had. And to be quite honest, there are many reasons for that and factors that made this game of this particular series a legendary moment. The drama, the suspense, the storylines. A player who came back home to fulfill his promise and win a championship to the city of Cleveland found himself down 3-1, and many seemed it to be impossible to even come back to a team that during that year was on the hunt for greatness and went 73-9 with the first unanimous MVP. A series that had a lot on the line, with the end capping off in the most poetic way. And that game stamped its place in NBA history and changed a lot of things after that moment. Throughout the entire span of the NBA, there has been 151 Game 7s. Each Game 7, whether that was in the first round or the NBA Finals, all meant something and had importance. There have been many that have gone down in history as some of the greatest battles between two teams, where upsets have happened, hearts were broken, and some changed the course of history. 2016 will seemingly be the greatest Game 7 of all time, but that game alone is not the only one that had a legendary moment. So that begs the question, of all the Game 7s that has ever existed in the NBA, what are the others that had a defining moment in NBA history?
Welcome to Game 7, everybody. For Michael Jordan, in this his 36th playoff series, it's just his third Game 7. But MJ offers assurances that the dynasty will not end here tonight.
During this playoff series for the Chicago Bulls, there was a lot riding on this moment for them, more so the Indiana Pacers. In the beginning of the 1997-98 season, this was the last dance for them. The MJ dynasty was about to end, with Phil Jackson heading into retirement as this was his final year of him being the coach. Scottie Pippen was looking to leave because of him having problems with the management, and many believed that Michael Jordan at the age of 35 was playing his final season with the Chicago Bulls. So the Bulls were looking to make their final hurrah and leave as champions in 1998. And during the playoffs, as per usual, they had dominated their competition and had little to no problems with who they were facing. But that was until they ran into the Indiana Pacers. Led by Reggie Miller and coached by Larry Bird, this was a hard-fought series from both teams, and it was one of the toughest challenges that the Bulls had faced throughout their entire dynasty.
If I had to pick a team that gave us the toughest time in the East, Indiana was probably the toughest outside of Detroit. They were tough. Every time I go in that fucking game and come out, I got a new scratch. It became personal with me.
That series with Indiana was the hardest playoff series we had. They were big, they were strong, they were physical.
In Game 7, the Pacers had the Bulls on the ropes for most of this game, and this was on the Bulls' home floor. They had their number until there was a play where a jump ball would determine who would walk away with the game. And what happened next is what sealed the deal.
Loose ball tipped out to Pippen. Kerr can tie it, and does! Pippen. 5 on the shot clock. Michael dumps it off to an open Longley. And the Bulls have a little bit of breathing room. Pippen driving. Throws up a little hook. It bounces home plus a foul. They look for Smith and Harper deflects it and comes up with a steal. And on to the finals. For the 6th time in 8 years for the Chicago Bulls.
This was by far one of the most important games during the 90s because it marked the potential end of an era, and if things could have gone differently, Michael Jordan would have ended his career with a loss rather than one of the greatest moments in his career, and most importantly, the Bulls dynasty would have ended right then and there as everyone would have left after 98. especially for Phil Jackson, as if they had lost, we may have never even gotten the Kobe and Shaq dynasty that was the Los Angeles Lakers. However, the Pacers were not the only ones that were a game away from dethroning a dynasty. Many teams have tried, but this particular team was one game away from greatness.
Is presented by Hulu. It's the defending champion Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets.
The Golden State Warriors during 2018 were on the hunt for their third championship in 4 years, and this was their second year with the newly acquired Kevin Durant on the roster, which the year prior, they would dominate the entire competition and defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games, and would stamp their names in history as one of the greatest teams ever assembled. They were seen as untouchable, and no one could challenge them to dethrone them. Over the offseason, many teams assembled and teamed up to try and combat and contend with Golden State, but many still saw them as the heavy favorites. That was until this team became a huge threat to the Warriors' chances at repeating.
Harden steps back, fires.
Well, he's more than that.
Oh, no, he did.
What a play!
No, he did. That was Clyde Drexler. Had nothing to do with that. Oh, what a great thing. The last 3 or 4 minutes. James. Put down a shot. Capella finishes it off.
The Rockets, this Chris Paul, James Harden pairing, this is a real external threat to the Warriors. The Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors in these Western Conference Finals, it's going to be Ali and Frazier, and they will slug it out.
Both teams had prior history to one another as they faced twice in the playoffs, and Harden was sent home in both years. But this season felt very different. The atmosphere was different, and for the first time, Golden State had a team that instilled a lot of fear. Many looked to them as the ones to beat the unbeatable. Both teams would finish top 2 in the Western Conference during that season, and they would basically beat every team in the first and second round leading into the conference finals. The fans knew it, the media knew it, and they knew it as well.
Man, we won 2 championships in 3 years. We're not about to run off talking about how bad we want to play somebody. Like, we want to win another championship. And it don't matter who's in the way of that. If you in the way of that, then you happen to be in the way. However, we got them. All right, now let's get it. We get to it now. But we got a goal. Whoever's in the way of that goal, you know, then we got to see you. You got to see us.
The series between both teams was very chaotic and the stakes were high. Houston was giving the Dubs a hard time and making them look human, and they were on the verge of going up 3-2 in the series. And it looked like they were in the driver's seat, but it came at a cost towards the end of Game 5.
Guarded by Hill. Ball on the spin. Chris Paul is down. Chris Paul is hurt. He's not going to come out the game.
The Warriors now had to win both games while down 3-2. They were in a situation similar to the Lakers in 2002, where they were trying to make history and the Kings almost ended their run. Golden State would win Game 6 on their home floor and force a Game 7, where they would have to go to Houston. And the Rockets would completely have control and were up double digits during that game. And they were 1/2 away from making it to the NBA Finals and defeating the greatest team ever created. But in the second half, everything changed.
Pass played by Curry with a high dribble. Durant. Yes. Young in a corner 3 here. It's Green getting inside. Nice Harden on the drive as Capella behind him. And hits.
Same play.
Curry gets the Harden. Durant over Harden for 3. Yes. Oh, Thompson. Yes. It's a 3. Curry with it. Curry fires for 3. Yes. And the Golden State Warriors are on their way to a 4th consecutive NBA final.
Many to this day debate on what would have happened if circumstances were different, and the unfortunate realization is that there is no time machine. Throughout the Warriors dynasty with Kevin Durant, there were a few times where they were truly tested, but the Houston Rockets was the biggest threat to them winning a championship. Because of Game 7, the Warriors went on to win 2 more titles after this game, and they are held to one of the greatest franchises in NBA history. Chris Paul and James Harden do not have championships to this day, and they split shortly after this moment. Because if things had gone Houston's way, Harden and Chris Paul would have been one of the greatest duos to win a championship. Kevin Durant and the Warriors might have split up after that season, and who knows what would have happened beyond that point. But sometimes luck is not entirely a bad thing, because luck can help you in so many ways, and it can lead you to victory. And there was a moment where an entire country was riding on one shot.
Good evening, everyone, from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's Game 7, Eastern Conference Semifinal.
as the Philadelphia 76ers play the Toronto Raptors.
This was not the first time Toronto or Philadelphia were in this situation. Back in 2000, both teams were in a similar setting, but the outcome was Philadelphia winning and making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Toronto never had that opportunity to make the finals throughout their time as a franchise. During the 2010s is where they ended up getting better and making the playoffs consistently, but they were always falling short and they were crumbling under the pressure. They weren't seen as a team to win a championship, rather a good team that was always bound to fail. But all of that changed due to the franchise getting one of the best players in the league, and he gave them hope that their time was now. Toronto was now a team that was taken seriously, and they were looked at as real contenders in the East. Alongside Kawhi Leonard, the Raptors had a championship-level squad. The Raptors would make the playoffs as the second seed in the East, and they would make it past the first round with ease. But they ran into a team that potentially was better than them, the Philadelphia 76ers, that had Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and of course, Joel Embiid. This was a series that would be the ultimate test for Toronto. Kawhi Leonard showed his leadership and was playing at a high level, but so did Philly, and they were responding to what they were throwing at them. With the series tied at 3 apiece, they would settle the final game in Toronto in a sudden death Game 7. And this would be one of the most tension-filled games. No team had a large lead, but it got very close in the last couple of minutes in the fourth quarter.
43%, Raptors at 36%, Leonard on him. Out to Redick, off the screen, long two. Wow! G. Redick! 21 in the series, and Siakam tonight has 9. 3, Leonard, good! What a shot! 39 for Kawhi Leonard. Stolen by Lowry, 2-on-1. Siakam! Two-point game. Here comes Butler driving. Layup is good. He ties the game. 4.2 to go. Knifing his way, Jimmy Butler. It's off to Leonard. Defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger?
At the buzzer. No good. It's blocked by Pierce. Knights. Cleveland. Goes for you.
Game. Series. Toronto has won. 15 fourth quarter points by Kawhi Leonard. 41 points.
This is what led to them eventually winning the championship and winning their first and only title as a franchise. While it was only their first, that shot made up for all the years of heartbreak and disappointment. Because if that didn't go in, then a lot of things would have been different. Teams wouldn't have broken up, legacies wouldn't have been cemented, and we could have possibly had another three-peat for the first time since the Kobe and Shaq era. All of that from one shot. And there was another team that also needed one shot to win. The difference is that this was a shot to get them to the final game of the series.
Parker gets in the paint. Stops, spins, shot is good. Tony Parker, back-to-back buckets, and the Spurs regain the lead.
This was a shot that brought the lead to 5 for the San Antonio Spurs. They were up 3-2 in the series, and they were 30 seconds away from dethroning the Miami Heat and potentially breaking up the Heatles for good. To further explain, throughout this series, the Heat looked lost against the San Antonio Spurs system, and they were running circles around Miami, and they had them right where they wanted them. Heading into Game 6, there was a lot riding on this moment for Miami, because the Big Three looked very abnormal heading into that game. And although LeBron was doing everything that he could to win this game, it looked like it was already over after Tony Parker shot, and many Miami Heat fans were leaving the stadium. And with this loss and 2011 on their resume, the Miami Heat's Big Three would have been clowned on after everything that they said they were going to do back in 2010.
I looked over at San Antonio's bench. They were cheering and waving towels, and then the final straw was when they brought the yellow ropes, and I just stayed in and I said, this can't be happening. It can't go down like this.
I remember just walking up and down the court and just seeing that yellow tape and everything. I couldn't believe it. I was just, this can't be it.
But the Spurs still have to close it out. And even though Miami's chances were little to impossible, all they needed was one chance to come back.
Off of Wade, you don't come off another three-point shooter. James catches, fires a three, way off, picked up by Miller, back out to James, another three, it's good! James knocks it down! 2-point game with 20 seconds remaining. Has to get it in. Finds Leonard. Leonard fouled by Miller, who did a good job fouling right away. A lot of pressure on a 21-year-old in his first NBA Finals.
Attack the rim. They're not going to come off a three-point shooter. You can score quickly.
Clutch one there from Leonard. And he goes for the three right away.
Just attack the basket.
James catches, puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound Bosch. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining. Spurs do not have a timeout. But the officials are going to review to see if Allen was behind the line. Green trying to get free. Cross-court pass to Green. Green blocked by Bosch. Game over. There'll be a Game 7. Welcome to Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It's only fitting that these two teams, the two very best in the NBA, after battling for 6 games, haven't come down to one final game to decide who will be the NBA champions. And that unbelievable start. And comes up with a steal here. Duncan, you rarely see this on a fast break from Miami. Low pass, Parker able to get it. Layup blocked by Bosch.
There's some guys like Dwayne Wade who looks energetic.
James and a foul.
I like the rhythm Wade is playing with offensively.
Oh, there's vintage Manu Ginobili. Wade's going to put up a 2-pointer. Knocks it down. 20 for Wade. Leonard, oh, count it, and a foul.
With Kawhi Leonard.
Wade fakes, pulls up. It's good. James kicks it out in the corner. Battier puts it in. 5 for 5 for Battier. Yeah, that's only his 5th three-pointer of the playoffs. Nice entry pass to Duncan. And the Spurs regain the lead. Shot clock at 5. James puts it up, knocks it down. James will try another three. Puts it in. LeBron James, 4th three-pointer. Ginobili. Kawhi Leonard for 3. Puts it in. 2-point game with 2 to play. Inside Duncan. Across the lane. Duncan misses the tip. No good. And Bosch the rebound.
And they're not going 2 for 1. It doesn't look like.
James pulls up. Puts it in. 4-point lead. 35 for LeBron James. Final seconds. What a finish. It's back-to-back titles for the Heat. The 2013 NBA Championship resides once again in Miami. LeBron James earns his 2nd ring as the Heat repeat and secure their 3rd championship in franchise history.
In a perfect world, this would have never happened. The Spurs would have won and dethroned Miami, and they would have possibly had gone back-to-back in 2014. Tim Duncan could have possibly had gone 6-0 in the NBA Finals and possibly be brought up in the GOAT discussion, but Miami proved that when you are faced with adversity, it reveals who you are in that moment, and they proved that they were worthy of being champions in Game 6 and Game 7, especially Game 7. Because of this, Ray Allen has the greatest moment of his entire career. The Heat's Big Three proved that they could win multiple championships, and this is where LeBron truly stamped his legacy. While it may not have been his first championship, this was the championship that started it all for his case as the greatest player of all time. And for this player in particular, this was quite possibly their last go at winning a title to make their case as one of the greatest players of all time. While we did not know it at the time, this is what cemented his legacy.
The Staples Center is packed and ready for the most dramatic event in professional sports. A Game 7 in the championship round. Kobe Bryant and the defending champion Lakers looking for the repeat. A chance to clinch back-to-back titles on their home floor.
The Celtics-Lakers rivalry spans throughout many decades, from Bill and Wilt to Magic and Larry. This was a rivalry that many fans deemed as the greatest in all of sports, and many players were a part of this long feud. At that point during the rivalry, the Celtics bested the Lakers 8 times, and the Lakers only won against them twice. And after 1987, There was a long period where both teams were not in the finals together. That was until 2008, where it was now Kobe and Pierce's turn to take on the feud in the new era of the 2000s. And the Lakers, especially Kobe, were on the hunt for a championship, and he was looking to win his first without Shaq, and it would end in only heartbreak for the Lakers. Boston won in 6, and they shut LA down with their stellar defense, and they were mentally and physically tougher. But Kobe would only use that as motivation and fuel, and he was on a path of vengeance, and he would make it all the way back to the finals, where he would win his 4th championship and his first Finals MVP. But some doubters were wondering, if it had been the healthy Celtics instead of the Magic, would it have been the same outcome? So Kobe had a lot more to prove heading into 2010, which is where the Celtics surprisingly would prove that although they were older, they still had their championship experience, and they would make it back to the NBA Finals and search for their 2nd championship. And on the other side, they were facing the Lakers once more for a rematch. This series was indeed a dogfight. The Lakers and the Celtics were giving both each other their greatest punches and were giving 110% to winning the championship at all costs. The Celtics would manage to go up 3-2 in the series despite being doubted that they could even win the series, and the Lakers were now in familiar territory once again.
We're sitting in the locker room and it's really, really quiet, and I just started laughing. And then I remember Derek Fisher looked at me like, "What is funny?" I said, "I'm missing the part where that's funny." I said, "Man, listen, if you start this season, all you have to do is win 2 games at home and you're NBA champ. Would you take that? We're NBA champions. All we gotta do is win 2 games in a row. That's it. We'll take care of the first game, and I promise you, they're not winning Game 7 on our home floor."
The Lakers would dominate Boston in Game 6 to force a Game 7 on their home floor. And with the series tied, this would be one of the most grueling games in NBA history that resulted in one of the best Game 7s ever.
That Pierce is creating.
Rondo and a Garnett, perfect pass. Got one on the shot clock, puts it up. And he raises the rim, Artest the rebound. Coverage in the post, Wallace. Nice bank shot, he does it again. Back out Fisher, Fisher for 3. Bang!
Find offense right now.
Bryant on the pull-up, puts it in. Backs in, spins, fake, shot. It's good! Gasol got it to go! Bryant looking. Artest, that's a 3. Bang! The Lakers repeat back-to-back titles. The LA Lakers, the 2010 NBA champions. Such emotion on the floor here at the Staples Center as the Lakers win their 16th title. And this has to be one of the sweeter ones as they defeat the Celtics finally in a Game 7.
Looking back at it, we weren't aware of how this title would change everything. If the Celtics had won, KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen would have 2 rings and could have competed for more, and Doc Rivers would have had another ring in his resume. They were very close to that becoming reality. As Kobe Bryant said, this was his greatest achievement of his career. Without this ring, he would only have 1 Finals MVP and 3 losses. He would have been known as the guy that drove Shaq out of LA, and people would have saw him as not a real leader, as someone who could get them to the NBA Finals but not win consistently. This was something that made him an all-time great and one of the best to ever play, and while it was his last championship, it was the one that made him a legend. Game 7 is one of the greatest words in sports. It can be a game that can define your career and change history. Some of the greatest moments that the game has ever had came from these type of games, and it helps set the path for many things that would happen after these moments. Many always talk about the what-ifs of the NBA, and there are many possible champions and teams disbanding and legacies that would have never even been talked about if certain things played out differently. We have had many Game 7s in our time, and we will continue to having them long after, but there are some that will just never be lost in time.